And then what happens now is that we run up to it, we can select it, we can hover over it, and we can press E. It's going to open our door. And then when it opens, it's going to wait for us to walk through it. And as soon as we end the overlap, then the door's going to close. And then we can walk up to this one, we can press E. It's going to open it. Hey everyone. So in the last video, I said let's look at setting up a door button. So maybe if we walk up to it, it says press E, and then that would animate the door to open and then wait for us to get through it and then close it. So what we can do is we can start by setting up a new blueprint, and then we'll take a look at doing some UMG to get the button display on the screen, and we can make it a little bit interactive, which will be super fun. So we're going to right click, start with a blueprint class, actor, and then BP underscore door button. Why does it say we've already got the door button? Let's delete that. And then I'm going to just right click and then validate assets in folder. We'll do this. And then we'll right click and we will update directories. So first person blueprints. Let's see if we can do that now. Actor BP underscore door button. Let's just do underscore door button. Right. So we're going to do a little, actually we'll do the viewport. We'll have a little cube that's stretched out. This is going to be our little podium, which would have our button on. Or it could be like a panel on the wall, which actually we could do that. We could do a little panel on the wall, which would be quite nice. So I'm going to scale this down quite a bit, and then we'll have this like so. I'm going to make sure that's still at 0, 0. So if we bring it into the scene, we're actually able to place it on the wall like so. It'll be pretty cool. There we go. So this is going to be our little door button. I'll scale it up a little bit so it's easier to see. There we go. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add a collision box. So box collision, we'll scale this up quite a bit because we don't want it to be too difficult to press. We'll make sure that we're on the right side. So yeah, there we go. So once we get into this, we can make it do something. I'm just going to hit the on component begin overlap for now, which is right behind my head. On component begin overlap, and we'll use this. So to display an icon to the screen, so let's say when we overlap it, we want it to say press E or that there's an interact button. It's actually quite simple to do. We can do add, and then we're going to do a widget, and you'll see that we've got this 3D widget component. If you've done VR in the past, pretty much the same setup. However, we're going to change this from widget, from using the widget in, where is it? Let me select it, roll up, there it is. From space to screen. So it's currently on world space. We need it on screen space. So if we select this, now whatever we do will be rendered to the screen. In here, I'm going to change the visibility in advance to hidden, and that way when we press start we don't actually see the UMG on the screen until we overlap it. Now what we can do is we can right click and we can go to user interface, we do create widget blueprint. I'll do that over here, user interface widget blueprint, user widget, so widget blueprint underscore door button, and then in here we're going to open this up, and I'm not going to use a canvas panel. The reason I'm not using a canvas panel is it updates on the frame, whereas in this case it's literally just going to say press E or just the E button or letter, and that way we can display it to the screen. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a border. I'm going to drag this in, and then what I'll also do is right click on the border. I'm going to wrap with a size box. So wrap with size box, and then if we go to width override in the top right here, we can set this to, let's see, 64 might be all right, might be a little bit too small. We don't see anything change here, even though we're setting the size. That's because the fill screen option is currently set. So we want to right click and do desired on screen. And you can see that this now shows us at 64 by 64 pixels. So we can select our border. We can add some text into it. This text is literally just going to be the letter E. And then we're going to make sure it's black so we can actually see it. Center that text up. And then also do vertical and horizontal alignment to E. And then scale this up to about, let's say 35. And for our background, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to a dark gray. I like dark gray, it looks pretty good. And then we'll change the draw as to image, or rounded box, sorry. And we're going to change this rounded to a value of 20 by 20 by 20. We'll see that it doesn't change. So we need to go to rounding type and change this to fixed half radius. And then we should see that do it. What have I done? Let's see. I might have done it too high. Fixed radius. I was on the wrong one. So we want just to be about 10. I think. Yeah, 10 or 15. Play around with a little bit. Cool. And then I'm going to change this to white. So it looks quite nice. So now what we can do is go back to our BP door button. We're not going to put any logic inside of this UMG. It doesn't really care. It doesn't need to worry about it. So BP door button. And then if we remove that, we can select our widget. Make sure that the widget class is WBP underscore door button. Now we want to make sure that draw a desired size is checked. If we press play now, we won't see anything, mainly because we set the visibility. So visible to hidden. But if I press play and I double check that I actually changed this to screen, what we'll do is when we press play, you'll see that that icon is now on our screen in the correct location for where it should be. So widget blueprint, BP door button, sorry. I'm going to set this to visible to hidden, hit compile. And now what we can do is widget get set visibility to true. And we could do the same thing that we did in the previous video, whereas on other actor we could do equal, and then we do get character, so get player character, check that it is a character class that is overlapping it, and if it's true, we set the visibility to on. So now with the box, we can do the end overlap, so on component end overlap, we can copy all of this and we can plug that in like so. So now when we get to it, what we can do is we can overlap it. It'll now say press E, and then we can back out, and then it will actually hide it. So we can change this however we want, which is really cool. What we need to do now is get an input, so an input mapping, and then we also need to send the message from this button to the door. So we're going to do that now. So inputs, by default, the first person template has a input mapping context underscore default, and an input mapping context underscore weapons. What we're going to do is we're going to create a new one. So we're going to right click, create a new input mapping context, IMC underscore interactions, maybe. We could do this as it is, or door interactions, but I'm going to keep it more general. And then in actions, we need to create a new input action. So if you want to know how input actions work in the enhanced input system, I do have videos on the channel showing that off already and walking through how to set that all up, but it's relatively simple. So input action underscore interact, and then we're going to open this up, and we want to make sure it is a digital boolean. So digital boolean just means it's going to be an on-off value, in our case a keyboard press for the E button. And now what we can do is go to our input, go to input mapping context interactions, and we can add this in here. So we do plus mapping, and say add interaction, do the drop down, press the little keyboard, and then just press E on the keyboard itself. So now if we add this into our button, when we overlap it, we can add the mapping context, and then we can tell our blueprint to do something on button press. So BP button, so we say overlap. I'm going to double check how they have it set up in the first person template, because it's been quite a while since I've actually used this one. So when we overlap it, it's not doing it here. It's going to be inside the weapons component. This is the logic that we want. So get owner, this is the section. So we want to get the first person character, get the controller, get player controller, and then add the mapping context. So what we can do is we could actually copy this whole section. So we're going to copy the get owner, first person character, and then the set a variable. And then we'll take this section down here as well. This will just save some time for us setting it up. Door button, and then we're going to paste this in. I'm going to do this at the top here, and I'm going to fire this all on event begin play, specifically the cast to, and then we can right click on this node and then create variable. So what we're doing is on begin play, we're getting the owner of this blueprint, or yeah, in this case the blueprint, which isn't going to work very well. We'll do character instead, get player character, and then we can hook that up. So on begin play, get player character, and then we store a reference to it, which will be fine. And now that first person character reference is set, so we can see it here. And then we get the controller that is possessing it, and we can add an input mapping context. So we can plug that in like so, and we just need to make sure that we change this mapping context to our interactions one. We also need to do the removal. So the way enhanced input system works is it's quite modular, so you can add and remove inputs from a project. We might have to double check that this works. The inputs might not, because we're not telling it to enable inputs on the blueprint, but we'll deal with that when we get there. For now, what we want to do is we want to remove mapping context. I don't think it actually has one in here. So what we'll do is we'll go back to our door button. We're going to copy this section is valid, copy it down, and then on end overlap, we'll drag off this enhanced input local player subsystem and then remove mapping context valid. And then we can remove the interactions. So when we're in it, we can press the E button. When we're out of it, we can't. Now we can right click, do we search input action underscore interact, and then we can do a trigger or a started. I'm going to do a started, I'm going to do a print string, and then it's just going to say hello. So if we walk up to this button on the wall, we should see our button, and if we press E, nothing actually happens. So what it could be is you might need the enable input here, and then plug this into there like so. Let's try this. There we go. So we just need to tell this blueprint that it has the ability to use inputs. So we can plug that in, and then when we leave it, if I press E again, nothing actually happens because we're removing it. Awesome. So what we can do now is, instead of picking a direct class, I want to show you how to use blueprint interfaces to make it a little bit more global and a bit more reusable. So blueprint, we're going to go down to blueprint interface, BPI underscore interactions. Let's say you've got interactions for Q, E. You could use this as a little bit of a message sender, so we can activate it that way. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say E to interact. So if we press E to interact, we're going to send a message to our door, and then we're going to tell it to do something. So in our door button, what we can do is say started. We can then do E to interact, and we say a message. So in this case, we're going to send a message to a specific door, and we're going to say open. That open logic is going to be handled in the door itself, so we don't have to worry about it. So we're going to remove that. And for the target, what you want to do is, because this E button could be used for as many different things as you want, or this wall button could be, that you could walk up to it, press E, it could open the door, it could spawn a new actor from a 3D printer, or it could blow something up. You want to leave it as general as you can, so you're not having hard references as well to direct things. You're kind of opening yourself up to make it reusable. So instead of object, what we're going to do is we're going to set this to an actor. We're going to just say object type is actor object reference. So we're going to say any actor that we have this selected in here, check to see if it has an interface. If it does, we can send a message to it. So target, I'm going to make this visible, so the little eyeball, and then we're going to say target to activate, and then we can drag this in. Oh, we've already got it. You could actually do interface. Be sure there was an option for has interface. I might be thinking of get component by interface. Yeah, because we don't really need to check with this if it's got an interface. If it doesn't, it just won't care. So now that we've got this, if we jump into our level, you see that we've got our button selected. And on the right now, we actually have this new target to activate. This is because we set the eyeball to be visible. So if I go back to the door button, we set this little eyeball here, which makes it visible in our editor to then send the message. So in our door now, we need to tell it that the button has been pressed to open the door. So if we go to we'll do class settings. On the right here, we have implement interfaces, double check the time. And then in here, we can actually search for BPI interactions. So we got this interactions, we can hit compile. And what that does is, in this section here, we've got this little interfaces drop down. And you can see it says we've got a function called E to interact. If we right click on our viewport now, we can search event E to interact. And you see we get this custom event with the little blueprint icon on it. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this to actually open the door. So we'll play the level sequence, and then we can actually remove the overlap. So now if I take this button and then do target overlap, we select the little picker, select this blueprint, and then I can duplicate this blueprint now. So the one on the wall, and then they're linked to this door. And I could take this one, and I could say, okay, we got it on here. This one is now going to be linked to this door, though. And then what happens now is that we run up to it, we can select it, we can hover over it, and we can press E. It's going to open our door, and then when it opens, it's going to wait for us to walk through it, and as soon as we end the overlap, then the door's going to close. And then we can walk up to this one, we can press E, going to open it, and then we walk through, it closes. And then we can press this one, it's going to open that one. Not too sure why that door opened back up. And then we can have it play our animations for our doors however we want. So we can kind of run through and then link it up. Don't know why that one keeps opening and closing. Oh, and then that one opens. Interesting. Door 2. Why would that be opening? We're only sending the interface to the one blueprint. They're talking to the correct ones. I wonder if it's an animation thing. It doesn't do it there. It might be that I'm playing the animations too fast, or I pressed it twice. Yeah. Ooh, right. If I exit it, it plays the animation again. Did on there. I'm so confused. Oh, I've got a bug somewhere. What could it be? We could set this to do once, actually. Do once, and then only on the overlap would it work. And then we could have a Boolean, and we do is door open. We could set this. So if it is, door is open, and then we do a branch. So get branch, check to see if the door is open to play the close animation, because we can't play the close animation if the door hasn't been opened already. So the door is open is true, and then we say on close, set that one. Cool. And I'm pretty sure there is actually in the sequencer, you can do a sign. So you can do sign on finished or on play. Because we're reversing the time frames, I don't want to do that because it might mess it up. The last time I tried it on play, literally only did it from the beginning of the start and then on finish. So you'd have to do kind of a little mixed setup for that, which is a bit of a pain. But we can open this. Hopefully now this actually fixes the issue we had where we could walk up to the door and then away from it, that it would play. There we go. It's quite slow. There we go. Oh, that helped quite a bit. What is happening now? Can't be related. I wonder what is happening. Playing again. Press E to interact. I wonder if it is because of our door button. I wonder if we're pressing this more than once and that's causing the issue. So we could do once, do a delay second, and then put that back in. And we could also say, actually, we don't even have to do the do once. Actually, we could do it that when we overlap it again. So when we overlap it, we can press the button. That allows us to press it once. When we end overlap, it allows us to restart the button press and then goes back in. So as soon as we press the button, we hide it. So we know that we've done it. Go up to it, press E. It's a little bit of a delay. Door button. That's because of that 1 second. We can remove that 1 second because we're changing it, how we're restarting it. Cool. E, doors open, and then we can't actually press that button anymore now until we exit the door. We can open it up, and that's what that door's waiting for us to go through it before we can actually pass through it as well. Cool. We could give it a delay actually. So if the door is opened, if it's interacted, we could say delay. Wait 10 seconds, and then we could close it again. I'm not too sure that will cause issues in itself, but we've got this one, it opens up. It's going to wait 10 seconds, which is a really long time when you're making a YouTube video, especially having to sit around for it. But there we go, it closes, and reopen it. And we pass through it, it closes at the right time. Press E, try this, and we'll see what happens if we press this button now. Because this button, for some reason, can control. I think that might have fixed it. Excellent. Do it. Resetting something. Okay. Either way, it's starting from dragging out. Imagine that's a bug you guys might be able to find. But you can see that how you can now make this modular and take what you want. So we can duplicate these buttons. We can move it over here. So we got a new door. And then with this, you've got a system that you can kind of expand. And then nothing's locked in to be the same for what you need. Let's do that in there. So all we need to do now is make sure that these blueprints, our buttons, reference the correct door. So we select both of those at the same time. and we'll say select door 3, and then now we've got this door as well, which we can then open, and then we'll get through, and then we can reopen it as well. It's a little bit jittery. The idea of this little two-parter was to show off the actor animation sequence anyway, and then how you can take it a little bit further. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Imagine it's something you guys can sort out. But before we wrap up, big thank you to everyone over on Patreon and YouTube members for hanging around and making this possible for me to do videos like this. If you want the project files, they will be available through Patreon and YouTube members, so you can take a look at this and see how it's all set up. And then yeah, if you want your name at the end of the videos, make sure to subscribe and also hit that like button, which will be super cool. And if you want to see the full version of this unedited, then it will be up on Patreon as well. Patreon and YouTube members. Cool, check out. Yeah, all right. I'll see you next time.